What's up everyone? Today I'm going to cover, should you actually start an outbound sales team? The reason why I'm doing this video is because I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me about outbound. They've either been seeing other videos on YouTube or seeing videos by people like Alex Hormozi, and it's kind of becoming the hype and excitement of the industry now. Ever since Hormozi has been talking about what he's done with his portfolio of companies, and a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, maybe I need an outbound sales team. So I guess you can say that Hormozi made outbound sexy again, right? Which is cool because I've been preaching outbound now for years, and ever since all the hype and craze has been coming up, a lot of people have been getting referred over to me. They've been reaching out to me and asking me questions, and I've been on tons of calls really looking at people's businesses to see, does outbound even make sense? So instead of me just repeating the same thing on every single call, I figured why not do a video for you that I can just send over to you, and you can just go and watch it and see if outbound would even make sense for you. So the kind of key components you need to know if it makes sense for you to start an outbound sales team is, number one, if you're wondering if it's going to be profitable for you, I've covered this in previous videos, but let's say you're already doing inbounds, because I want to put this in perspective, right? Let's say you already have an inbound channel, whether on inbounds, whether you're doing the sales calls yourself or your sales team is, and if inbound is actually working, right? Whether it's like consistency from organic, or you're maybe doing paid traffic and doing webinars and stuff like that. In the past, every time I've added an outbound sales team to an inbound process already, meaning during your inbound process, you are collecting phone numbers, I have always seen on average a 7x more revenue than inbound by adding this, right? If you're wondering why that is, it's very simple math. If you're running ads to a VSL or webinar, and let's say you have 2 to 3% convert into a booked call, that means there's 97 people who did not book a call or purchase your course or whatever, right? So that just lets you know all the revenue on the table, right? So I'm gonna leave it at that in terms of whether or not it's profitable. But as you can imagine, to have an outbound team, you need, obviously, there's different components that you're going to need, right? Component number one is you're going to need actual people to set the calls. So you're gonna need setters, right? I like to call them alignment specialists. So we'll say AS for alignment specialist. And then of course you're gonna wanna have somebody be there to close the deal. So closers. Or if you're the owner of the company, this could be you as well, right? So somebody has to be there to actually handle the appointments from the setters, right? Now, should you actually organize an outbound team? So there's kind of key components you're gonna need to make sense when you're making a judgment call on whether you wanna step into outbound. And this one is very, very important. So number one, you must have an offer, like your offer must be at least 10K, right? And even, I'll be honest with you, even 10K in terms of margin is kind of a stretch. But if you have a minimum of a 10K plus offer, then absolutely you should do outbounds. If you have anything less than 10K, I would say don't even bother. It just doesn't make any sense because you're not gonna have enough margin left over to be able to pay setters and pay closers. And kind of a rule of thumb when you're kind of gauging this on your offer, now let's say you have, I don't know, a 20K offer. If you want to get into going in with an outbound sales team without paying from the get-go, like most people are starting from scratch. So a lot of people don't want to have to go and pay a salary to get things like setters and stuff, right? A lot of people want to go commission only, which is fine, it's possible, right? I have tons of clients that do commission only, but kind of the best rule of thumb is if you have an offer right now, and let's say it's 20K, right? If you can just get in the habit of deducting 25%, like literally, right? So obviously 25% off of a 10K offer would be 2,500, 25% off of a 20K offer would be 5,000, right? So minus 5K, boom, leaves you with 15K left over. Make sure I do my math right. Yep, 5K, 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 5K. Yep, absolutely. So if you're cool with the 20K offer, selling it, and then afterwards, when all payouts goes, you have things for bonuses and things like that, and you have 15K left over, I don't know what your expenses are. I don't need to know what's going on in your personal life or whatever you pay for, softwares, ad spend, whatever else it is, and then plus paying yourself out as an individual, the owner of the company. As long as you're cool with after 25% of whatever you're charging being left over, and it's still at least a minimum of a 10K offer, not afterwards, but starting here, right? So same thing. So if you do have a 10K offer, if you're cool with 25% being 2,500 and having 7,500 left over and still being able to handle expenses, then you're good, right? Simple. So that covers the offer. I've just been doing this a long time, and it's really anything less than 10K for setters and closers to work their way up. It doesn't make any sense, right? So minimum of 10K, right? And even like I said, even that's a stretch. Preferably, 20K, 30K, 50K, 100K plus really makes outbound worth it, right? So that's number one. This is kind of key component number one that you have to look for is if the answer to this question is a check mark, then you're good on the offer. So we'll go check, right? Cool. Question number two. Do you have a database of leads? This is very, very important. You absolutely must have a database. So, database. And when I say database, I mean a database of phone numbers, because this is outbound, right? I'm talking outbound sales. I'm talking phone sales. I'm talking calling, texting, emails, the whole shebang, right? And texting and phone calls are way more powerful than anything else out there that you're doing. Like, I know a lot of people are doing DMs and doing chat and all this other cool stuff, but at the end of the day, the easiest and best way to get a hold of somebody is going to be through SMS and actually calling them, right? So you must have phone numbers, right? So if you at least have a database of leads and phone numbers, right? If you're watching this, you're like, oh, well, Dylan, I have a whole database, but I don't have phone numbers, right? Then it doesn't count. Like, you have to have phone numbers. Or if you're running traffic right now for ads and it's going into your VSL webinar, all you have to do is starting today, just add phone numbers to the opt-in, and then boom, now you're starting to build a database, right? And typically you want to be able to go for at least a good 90-day run rate, right? So let's just kind of do the math together. It's very easy. Typically, if you were to have a setter or a team of people call a minimum of 100 leads per day, 5 days a week, right? That means that's 500 a week, right? There you go. So for 4 months, or for 4 weeks is 1 month, right? Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. So that's at least 2,000 numbers, right? And that's minimum. That's for 1 month. You really want to have enough to go for a good testing period of at least a quarter. So 6,000, right? 3 months worth. You really want 6,000 plus phone numbers in your database to go through and actually go and test. Generally speaking, we've seen anywhere from about 2 to 5% conversions on this with outbound, which is actually pretty huge in the industry. So just do the math, right? Whatever your offer is, minus 25% that you would be paying out to the team and having stuff for bonuses. And again, this entire 25% isn't necessarily going to all these closers and setters. It's also designed to have a pool to where eventually you can hire things like a head of sales, have a sales manager go and run your team. I'm just future pacing here and setting up realistic expectations. But whatever that number would be, 2 to 5% of however many leads you have in the database, you can literally just calculate it and see what the expectations of what you want to shoot for when it comes to putting this process in place. But if you do not have a database of at least that many, then I would say it's just, again, it's not worth it, right? Because you really want to have a good runway of consistency of leads that you can hammer at least a minimum of 100 a day for 5 days a week. I have clients that are crushing a lot more than this and, very profitable and going through, but if you don't have a minimum of at least 6,000, then again, I would say don't do a team. But if this is a check mark and you made it past step 2, check, right? Then you're good. You got your second check mark. So it's 2 checks. Offer, database. Now, database does not have to be something that you have internally, right? I do have clients who acquire lists from different lead sources. Like they'll buy lists or get lists online or or scrape lists from the internet, whatever, right? As long as you know it's ideal and it's your audience and you can get access to that traffic, it's fine. Obviously, you can turn cold it's a different ball game, but it's not hard to warm cold traffic up and turn it into warm. Just as much as paid ads does. It's very possible, and it's insanely profitable, even if you're going after cold market for consistency. That's fine. But as long as you can get access to a database, you can turn it into business. So that's check number 2. Finally, the final one that I would say that's very, very important is going to be actually having social proof. Because this is outbound. So social proof is going to be the most important aspect now more than ever, okay? And now, what's the check box on social proof? Because I know a lot of people will be watching this and you're going to be like, well, I got social proof. I have 2 Combo Club awards and all this stuff, and I've been featured in Forbes and blah, 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 blah. That's not the social proof I'm talking about. I don't care about your 2 Combo Club awards or what you've been featured in or any of that stuff, okay? I mean like actual case studies consecutively. Because during this process of outbound, we leverage a lot of case studies and social proof, because if you're calling somebody out of the blue or reaching out to a list, even if it's warm, and you're making an offer or a guarantee or promise, whatever it may be, you better have proof to back it up that you are good at whatever it is that you do and what you're selling. Because if you you don't only need the prospect to believe you're good at what you do, but you need your team, your setters and your closers to know with absolute certainty that the effort that they are about to put in for this entire system is going to actually deliver results to the people they're talking to, right? If the setters and the closers who you're going to be hiring and building up during this process don't even believe in you and your product, there is no shot you're going to be successful. So the best rule of thumb is, how can you judge if you're actually good at what you do? Okay, I know it's a prideful thing. A lot of people watching this are like, oh, I'm good at what I do. I am blah, 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 right? Like, you have to have your audience so refined down to where you know you can get a new case study in less than 30 days. 30 days or less. So, 30 days or less. Now, what this means is, if you were to start doing outbound right now, and you had enough of a database to go for a good quarter, a good run for 90 days with you and the team, okay? And that means, let's say on the first month you closed 1 deal while you're building up this process, right? 1 deal. This means that you are so good at what you do and your promise that within 30 days or less, you know you can turn this 1 deal into some kind of case study for your team to leverage in the process, right? That means you're having wins 30 days or under consecutively, right? I'm not talking about case studies you have from a year ago or 2 years ago or 6 months ago. Like, you're literally so good at getting case studies and you're good at what you do that you're confident in your skill set to be able to deliver and help somebody get results in 30 days or less. If that is a check mark, and this is very important because we use this in a process for follow-up. This helps with pushing all the people in your database over the edge who you reached out to on day 1. And I'm gonna do a completely different video on follow-up. It's actually, the process is pretty incredible. You know, I think you'll really like it. But if this is a check mark, then you are good. So, again, when it comes to outbound, should you actually start an outbound sales team, right? If you have an offer that is 10K plus, right? And after 25% of it going away to, you know, in margin, going into way to your team, and you know you're still profitable left over, and it is at least, your offer is at least 10K, then you should absolutely start a sales team, right? Now, caveat number 2, if you have a database, and is a database large enough to let you actually go for 90 days, right, of a minimum of $100 a day, so at least 6,000 phone numbers. If you can acquire at least 6,000 phone numbers, then you should absolutely start an outbound sales team. And finally, if you're so good at what you do and what your offer is and what you promise, that you can get consistent case studies. When people come in, you can turn around wins. It doesn't have to be anything grand, or, like, I'm not saying create millionaires in 30 days. Some kind of win that you can generate within 30 days or less that your team's gonna be able to go and leverage. If this is check, check, and check, then you should absolutely start an outbound sales team and add it to what you're doing, because you will knock it out of the park and add an extra, at least minimum 7 times more revenue than what you're already doing on a recurring basis, without relying on ad spend. Or maybe you're already doing ad spend that's going inbound, you are acquiring phone numbers, and cool, even better. Definitely add this into that if you still have these check marks and you're gonna have a database coming in from paid ad spend, right? But if any of these is no, like there's no check mark, then you absolutely should not start an outbound sales team. It just doesn't make any sense. I would say go level up your skills, find an audience until you're absolutely certain on who your audience is and who you serve, that you can help deliver results with a really, really good offer, like making things like guarantees, making things like promises, right? I know you hear that a lot of people are like, well, you can't promise or guarantee that. The only people who say that are people who suck at what they do. You absolutely can't promise and guarantee that. If you're good at what you promise and delivering results, there's no reason why you can't have a really good guarantee, and you can't help people win in a short amount of time, okay? Right? And if you're willing to go high ticket, the higher the better, but anything less than, then you shouldn't do it. So hopefully this kind of brings to light the criteria when it comes to starting an outbound sales team. I hope this was valuable to you. If you guys have any questions, as always, put it down in the comments. I love to review the comments and answer any questions. Hope you guys found this value, and I'll see you guys on the next video.